Learning more about Vietnam. From Toronto in Canada, the latest from podnews.net with co-host, powerful podcast hosting for agencies and brands. We start with an exclusive today. In our latest look at podcasting in the East, we're visiting Vietnam, a country where audiobooks are surprisingly popular and where the roads aren't ideal for podcast listening. Quang Jin Yo also looks at the history of podcasting in the country for this long read for Pod News. It's another fascinating one. You'll find it linked from our show notes and our newsletter at podnews.net. 14,000 podcasters have had their Anchor usernames, emails and passwords posted on a Russian-language black hat hacking website. In Finland, a study says that podcast listening takes time away from traditional media like radio and television. The data from Norstat is released today by Podimo, which claims a 40% growth in subscribers since the beginning of the year. Disco Free by Headliner is being launched today on Product Hunt. It's a free AI-driven podcast discovery tool for podcasters who also have a blog or website. We believe in podcasters and content creators who want to distribute their content broadly across all third-party platforms. Those are the words of SiriusXM CEO Jennifer Witz being interviewed by Nilay Patel for Decoder. We're linked to a transcript as well today. Do you do fancy live streaming with OBS but want to make your audio that bit better? Waves plugins now work with OBS, according to the company. We're linked to how. The Australian Podcast Awards, published by iHeart, return this year with 30 categories. Submissions are now open. Albi is partnering with Podcast Guru to offer value-for-value payments to podcasters in the popular Polished podcast app. And a podcast network run by Ivy Media is to close, according to an email to contacts. The faith-based network had 8 shows and achieved more than 10 million downloads in the past 12 months. In People News, Lillian Zhu is joining Vox Media as the executive director of the audio business. She joins from New York Public Radio. We're also told she plays pickleball, which we fondly imagined was a game played with actual pickles, probably in a bar at the end of a long night. It turns out not to be. And N. Jerry Eaton has been hired by Wondery as head of co-production for limited series. She had worked at Apple Podcasts and most recently was head of podcasts at Netflix. And in podcast news, in Breaking Bread for the Hungry Mind, guests don't meet before the podcast recording, and they never know the topic of conversation they're going to be asked about. It's in the middle of the first season. The King Road Killings, an Idaho murder mystery, is new from ABC Audio, new from Sony Music and Hyper Object Industries. Without explores the things we stand to lose and the things we should be losing, and what might still be saved. The Leon Media Network has launched a new podcast called Educate US, or maybe Educate Us. It'll feature conversations with educators and experts about important and pressing topics in the education space. Free from Desire is an official selection in the audio storytelling program of the 2023 Tribeca Film Festival and premieres today. And Indigenous leaders in the West are getting a seat at the table to make decisions about things like drought, bison and museum artifacts. The Modern West returns to tell the story of the Plains Indian Wars through audio storytelling, reenactments and music. This podcast is sponsored by Co-Host and Quill. Interested in which companies are listening to your podcast? Explore Co-Host's B2B analytics tool for companies and industries, created by Quill at cohostpodcasting.com. And that's the latest from our newsletter. To read all the stories and subscribe, we're at podnews.net.